Our next storyteller is an avid diver and an amateur marine biologist. He speaks 3 languages, but unfortunately he's only going to be using one of them to tell his story tonight. Everyone, please put your hands together for Zack Smith.
All right. Good evening. All right. So, there was a time in my life when I felt like I was getting older, like 38, early 40s, and it felt like that great future that you imagine, that I imagined when I was little, some great adventure. It felt like it was getting shorter. The future was kind of closing in on me. And my reaction to that was to go online and start looking up words like sailboat, scuba diving, coconut, I don't know, octopus, just these like animals and things. And so I was looking those up, and there was a website that was for a company, and they delivered sailboats all over the world. And I thought, well, perfect. And I signed up with them, and I got offered to help deliver a sailboat from Tahiti, across the Pacific, through the Panama Canal, across the Atlantic, and into the Mediterranean to Spain. And that's a pretty amazing thing. Now, I had some sailing experience, and I was, at that point, presented with a situation where you're kind of granted your dream. You have this wish, and you're granted it. And, it's like opportunities knocked on the door. And I had to accept it or maybe shy away from it, because it sounded a little bit maybe crazy too, like all the way across. It's going to be 4-month journey, and I don't know the captain or the crew, and I have to fly into Tahiti. And yet, my feeling at that moment was that if I turned away from that opportunity, that dream, that future adventure that I'd always dreamed about, that would be the beginning of dying. That those little moments when you turn away from those opportunities, that's dying, bit by bit by bit. And that was a big worry for me, that I would have regret. So I booked a flight, and I flew to Tahiti, and I got on the sailboat, met the captain, met the other crew. We got the boat ready, and we sailed out into the great blue Pacific. And it was amazing. At nighttime, we could see so many stars and shooting stars constantly. And we were catching fish. And there were dolphins riding the bow of the sailboat. And there were just things that you see on TV. I'm always watching National Geographic and seeing these things, and I was experiencing it. And it was a moment where I felt more alive than I've ever felt. And it was just amazing. And it's week 1, week 2, week 3, and we're sailing, and it's this great adventure. And little things break on the boat. The sail tears, and a rope breaks, and little things happen like that, and you fix them. And we're cruising, and we're going eastward across the Pacific. And sometimes the current helps you out, and sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it goes against where you're going, so you have to tack. You go up and you go down, and sometimes the wind helps you out. So there's all these different factors that you're trying to use to get to a destination. And so sometimes they help you, and sometimes they don't. And as we're cruising along day by day, more and more things start to break on the boat. And I'd never really been faced with a situation like that. And it was like, sure, we can fix the sail, we're going to sew it, and a rope broke, we can knot that. But it started to kind of get to the point where these things piled up, and there was just more and more and more things going wrong. And we were literally months away from help. We were as far as you can get, literally, from other humans on planet Earth without going into space. And if something happened, we had to fix it. If you had a broken leg, you better know how to set it. And in a situation like that, with these problems and things kind of piling up on the boat, I started to feel a little bit anxious. as you may imagine. And it started to not really feel like an adventure. It started to seem like really a challenge. And we were also getting low on food. And so we were eating crackers, lots of crackers with jelly on them. And we were starting to not eat the way you would normally eat. We were taking smaller portions and drinking less water. And it's not a good feeling to be in a situation like that. I felt definitely anxious, stressed, and it just seemed to get worse. We started running out of diesel fuel as well. And if you're in a boat and it runs off of diesel fuel and it has an engine and you have a ripped sail and you have other issues, you really want to have enough fuel. We were running out of fuel, out of water, and for me personally, kind of out of hope. And one evening, we were cruising along, and I was in my bed taking time off, and one of the crew was at the wheel, and I hear this shout, and the crew says, "Captain, there's rocks to the left." And then I immediately hear this crunching sound, and the boat hits something, like if you were in a car and you were going 80 miles an hour and you ran into a curb. It was just this crunching, horrible sound, this horrible feeling. And I jumped up, and I ran up, and the crew is at the wheel, and the boat, for some strange reason, was going in a circle. Like every 30 seconds, it seemed to come around, and then we would hit something again in the water, and another crunch, and then the boat started tilting a little bit as well. And when you've been on a boat for over a month, and you're used to everything being nice and like this, and it starts tilting, your world is starting to tilt. And we tried to put the anchor out, and it was rusted, and we couldn't get the anchor out. And the boat kept going in this circle every 30 seconds and smashing into something, and waves kept coming up as part of the arc. And it was very confusing, and yet it was just really alarming. And water started coming up in the bottom of the boat. And the captain pulled the emergency strap to inflate the life raft, but the life raft was inside the boat. So it started inflating, and it didn't really help us out. And then eventually, he turned off the key for the motor. And so we weren't going in this circle and smashing into anything anymore. But now we were floating, and we were listing, and the waves kept hitting us. And strangely enough, I wasn't alarmed. I didn't really feel in danger. I was dry. I was okay. I wasn't hurt. You would think that you'd panic. I was surprised that I just kind of, well, I'm alive right now. I might not be in 10 minutes from now, but I'm okay. And I asked the captain, and I said, "Captain, what do you want me to do?" I was thinking, how can I help him? That's your job as crew. Help the captain. "Captain, what do you want me to do?" And he looked at me, and he said, "Make some tea." And I knew at that moment I was on my own, that we were no longer a crew, that whatever I did from then on was probably going to affect whether or not I would survive or not, but I had no idea what was going to happen. I knew our boat was slowly sinking, and the waves were hitting us, and we were getting pushed. I knew that. So strangely enough, I went to the kitchen, not to make tea. I went to the refrigerator in the kitchen, and I opened it, and there was a bunch of cheese in there. We had a lot of cheese left, so I ate pretty much as much cheese as I could. I stuffed my face with cheese. That seems rational. And there was a jug of water that we'd been rationing, and I drank the whole thing. It was almost an entire gallon. Of course, that's what you would do. And there was a little piece of sausage in there that we were saving, and I ate that as well. Because no matter what happened, at least I would have water and food in my body, and I'd be okay. So I then went out of the kitchen, and I was in the back part of the boat, just staring out into the darkness, and the boat is slowly sinking, and the waves are pushing us, and I'm staring out into the darkness, hope, I don't know what. Behind me, there's the boat, it's sinking, and a rope hits me in the face. Just like, wham, like that. And I grab it, of course I grab it. And I tie it onto the boat. And then and I pull it, and I hop off the boat, and I get into the water, and I start pulling myself along this rope because it's come from somewhere, right? And the boat's sinking. Nothing's happening there. There's no future behind me, so go forward. And I pull myself along, and at some point I get to where there's kind of rocks, and I kind of look up, and I don't know what's really going on, and I see a hand come down. Like this, a human hand. And I take it, and it starts pulling me up onto land, and I hear a voice, and it says, "Bienvenidos a Galapagos." And I'm on land, and I'm safe, and that's it. I ended up living there for 2 years in the Galapagos Islands. And it was an amazing adventure. Thank you.